Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, wala hawla wala quwwata illa billah, amma ba'd. It's me, Jihan Zahrani, and here is my friend Dewi Ayu Indasari, and we are from the third group. And in this video, we're going to discuss about one of the mass communication theory, and that is cultural studies theory. Okay, next slide. Okay, and here are the contents that we are going to talk about. The first one is gonna be about definition, and then history, figures behind this theory, or the author or the founder of this theory, and then the statements, general application of the theory, and the last one is going to be about the theory application in Dawah. Okay, next one. This first slide is going to be told by Dewi, so time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Jihan, for the time. Now I will explain about what is cultural studies theory. Cultural studies theory assumes that culture cannot be understood apart from politics, and cultural studies practitioners are concerned with questions of power and often strive to engage in analysis or theory that will contribute to counter hegemonic struggle, and often in a way that blows up the Marxist lines of thinking. And then the history of cultural studies itself, its term was originally coming from Center of Contemporary Cultural Studies, or CCS, at Birmingham University in UK, and then the CCS is on 1964. Then on 1972 they start publishing cultural studies. So the published works of CCCS finally embodies cultural studies spirited with new thought. And then here is the figures behind the theory. First is the Richard Hogarth. So Hogarth's work for cultural studies is his detailed study of world-class culture that legitimize the meanings and practice of ordinary people as they seek to live their lives and make their own history. Jadi Richard Hogarth ini adalah pencetus utama dari lahirnya cultural studies ini, yang pada akhirnya nanti akan diteruskan oleh pencetus-pencetus yang lainnya. And then the next, Raymond William developed a concept of culture that went beyond the dominant academic concept in England at the time. He gives the view that culture is the whole life, which values, practice, and artifacts. This perspective ultimately greatly influenced the development of cultural studies. And then the next is E.P. Thompson. In his book, Thompson attacks the Marxist emphasis on impersonal economic power as the main line of historical change, and Marx's interpretation of 19th century has consequences as the ultimate product of the new industrial system. Thompson argues that nothing is automatic in the process of the emergence of the working class. And then the next one is Stockholm. Stockholm is known as a figure who developed culture study to become a spirit discipline of study among other social science studies. So jadi sebenarnya dari keempat tokoh ini, mereka itu memiliki latar belakang yang sama, yaitu dari kelas pekerja, yang pada akhirnya mereka mencetuskan cultural studies ini sebagai salah satu bentuk upaya agar terjadinya berkurangnya gap antara kelas atas dan kelas menengah bawah. And then here is the statements of cultural studies in communication. Communication is a form of cultural practice, where communication is an actual action related to the performance and the inherence of cultural values. Communication in the term of cultural studies will be seen as a practice associated with power relations. And then the characters of this theory is first examining the subject matter from the point of view of cultural practice and its relationship to power. And then the next is understanding and analyzing the socio-political context in which culture manifests itself. And then pragmatic, intellectual, critical, and political. So the next is example of this theories. Jihan will explain more.
Yeah.
Time
Thank
is
you.
yours.
Yes, thank you, Dewi. Then now we're going to talk about the example of theory application in general. So an example of the application of cultural theory through mass media is the Western culture, which affects the original culture of Indonesia. So as we know that the waves of Western culture has affected us in terms of fashion and many kind of cultures, music, fashion, and etc. Another example of that is movies and K-pop fashion that are currently becoming a hype, especially among teenagers. This makes them prefer to wear K-pop style in clothing than our own style. Jadi sebagaimana kita tahu, dulu kita ada gelombang budaya barat yang masuk ke kita, jadi mempengaruhi dari segi tren fashion, musik, dan lain-lain. Tapi kalau sekarang itu yang lebih berpengaruh ke kita, terutama remajanya, adalah budaya-budaya K-pop. So ini masuk dari teori application in this theory, in general. Yes, next slide. And then the example of this theory application in da'wah. In preaching or while doing the da'wah, the da'i always tries to use various media to attract madar or the recipients or the receivers of da'wah. As an example, in the ancient times, Sunan Kalijaga used wayang kulit as a means of preaching to the public to study Islam. But nowadays, many preachers use social media, as social media is a trend nowadays. So they use social media to spread their knowledge. The examples of da'wah itself can be through oral, written, and even so. One of the cultural studies in preaching or in da'wah is Maher Zain, who sings Islamic songs with which is eventually spreading throughout the world, across the world. So in the application of this theory in da'wah, we can find so many examples. Those who are doing da'wah in social media, we can find like so many influencers, such as, let's say, Hussein Bashaiban and like Agam, Hawariyun, and etc. We have so many examples of this, and we can benefit from that to be like the one who duplicates the way they do the da'wah. And then we also have another example which use the culture of music or the culture of song. Like one of them is Maher Zain. So this is the ending of our talk today. Thank you for your attention. So we have been talking about the definition at first, and then the history, the features, the author, the characters, statements, and then the examples of application. So we hope that this will benefit you. And at last, as the conclusion is that this theory is basically connecting between the culture and political life, like seperti tadi yang dijelaskan Mbak Dewi. Jadi teori ini berusaha untuk memperkecil gap antara kelas atas dan bawah, karena ini diciptakan oleh kaum pekerja dan mereka mendukung teori Marxisme seperti itu. Jadi untuk melawan kapitalisme yang sedang berkembang. So Mbak Dewi, do you have any addition as the closing?
Not yet. Maybe this is not for us.
Alright, so that's all from us. Thank you for your attention. See you guys in the next video, inshallah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you everyone.